For the Chino waistband, I am doing my bias tape a little bit differently. I've gone and done a bias strip that is 1¼ inches wide. I've then pinned it right sides together along the bottom edge of my waistband lining, and I'm going to sew that at a 1/4 inch inseam. So I used a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I stitched it. I'm going to press away from my waistband, turn it to the wrong side, and press again. Then I pinned my waistband to my skirt, and now I'm going to sew my waistband to my skirt with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. After I attached my waistband, I pressed it up, so now it has this nice crease. Going to attach my waistband lining, starting from the back, right sides together, matching the center back seam. Working my way, keeping it even. I did not add interfacing to my waistband lining. So just keep that in mind. You may or may not have. I just used a heavier duty interfacing on the exterior of the waistband. I didn't want my waistband to be super thick. On the side of your waistband, the side where the flap, your fly is the front, not the back. It's not going to, so it's going to be the wearer's right side. It's not going to reach all the way to the edge. This side though will get closer to the edge or the end of the waistband exterior. So now I'm going to sew these together. I've stitched my waistband lining to my waistband. I also went and graded my seam allowance. This is where you just cut them at different lengths. So this is the original seam allowance on my waistband. I just left that as is, and then I just cut my seam allowance on my waistband lining. This is after I sewed them together, and I cut that in half. I forgot to mention that I also did that on my skirt after I attached the waistband to my skirt or your shorts or whatever. Then I pressed my lining away from my waistband, and the seam allowance is towards my waistband lining. Now I'm going to understitch which is basically stitching within 1/16 to no more than 1/8 of an inch away from this, where the seam is, along the lining. This just helps to create a flat piece right here, and then it also helps to pull this, like everything to this side, to the inside. It's just a nice clean finish. I've done my understitching now, and then I went and I pressed this towards the waistband 5/8 of an inch, and then this end 5/8 of an inch. Now going to fold this over so that it's straight with this line. Which would also be straight with, for me, it's also kind of straight with this. So folding this, and I'm going to stitch just below here. To do that, it'll be easiest to come to the other side. So you want to stitch just below where the lining is attached to the waistband. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch from this side so that I can see my stitching right here, so that I know that I'm not going to hit my lining. It says 1/8 of an inch. I stitched approximately 1/8 inch away from where the lining was attached to the waistband. I also went and clipped the seam allowance of my waistband, just the corner, to help reduce some bulk. To turn this, to make turning it easier, open these up, press so that you feel it's flat, and then turn it out. If you need to poke something to turn that corner nice and neat, you can. Then press this corner. I've already done that. And then I went and folded this corner under and pressed that. So that's all been done. Now I'm just gonna lay this nice and flat, see where they meet up at. And pin these together, just the tab of the waistband and the waistband lining. And I'm going, so you can see that I don't have my shorts or skirt in there, and I'm just going to stitch, top stitch right here to secure those together. So I've gone and stitched that, and that side is done. On the other side, I'm going to fold the lining towards the outside of the garment. Come to the inside, going to pin it. And then I have a lot of excess here, which isn't needed, but I'm going to sew straight up, extending this line right here. I stitched this together. I trimmed off my excess and then I cut my corner. I'm going to turn this right side out. I will press that. I pressed my corner. While I was at it, I also went and just pressed my entire waistband lining to the inside. You can see how there's 1/8 of an inch of the exterior waistband peeking through on the inside. Now, since this is nice and pressed and flat, I'm just gonna pin this all down and then I'll come through and pin it again on the other side. So once I'm done pinning, I will go and stitch in the ditch the entire length of the waistband. So I will start here and go all the way around till I get all the way to the end. I stitched in the ditch to attach the bottom of my lining down. So now that's done. Everything meets up nice and neat. So now all I have to do is add a buttonhole and a button or sew on something, do whatever it is that I decide to do.